The title of my talk is Fake It Till You Make It, the power of cognitive behavioral therapy to change problematic personalities, help with mental illness, and make us happier. So, just to go through the science, cognitive behavioral therapy is grounded in science. It actually has an amazing breadth of research. One is NIMH, National Institute of Mental Health, funded study, which compared cognitive behavioral therapy to medication. And this is really, really interesting because at 3 months, the antidepressant medication showed a great response rate, far superior to CBT. But after 6 months, CBT caught up to the medication group and showed exactly the same response rate, and the medication and CBT group a little higher. So you can do the same job with cognitive behavioral therapy as with medicine, and guess what? The antidepressant medications have a side effect of problems with orgasm. So who wants that? CBT also shows amazing changes in the brain. On MRI and PET scans, we see normalization of the circuitry. So a depressed brain can start looking more like a healthy brain, even on brain scans. So that's a pretty amazing thing. Okay, this is Vanna. She's my assistant, and she's going to hold up a slide. This is Becks Triad, which is that CBT works on thoughts, which is the cognitive part, behaviors, and emotions. So you can't change your emotions. Has anyone ever said to you, cheer up? Does that work? No. But what you can do is change your thoughts and change your behaviors, and then you will feel better. So our brain processes information, millions of packets a minute, and our brain collaborates these information into what's called schemas, and that helps us see and process things. If we didn't filter the information and put into schemas, we wouldn't be able to function. Some people walk down the street and they might see trash on the street, they might see the graffiti on the wall. The other person walks down the same street and sees the ice cream store and the children playing. Same street. So it's all about what we perceive. That's important. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you about Vanna. Vanna over here is a 29-year-old woman who just couldn't seem to get ahead despite having a job working as a creative director. She just still didn't feel fulfilled. She spent a lot of time on social media trying to find the perfect match for a mate. She had gone on many dates, but just when she thought she found someone, it seemed their relationship didn't work out. She figured it was because she wasn't good enough for guys. Guys wanted skinnier women, prettier, better dressers. She figured it was hopeless. She always tried to be perfect, wear the right thing, say the right thing. She would go over conversations in her head after each date trying to figure out where it went wrong. Her friend Cassia set her up on a date with a guy named Gary. He was a guy who goes to Burning Man, so her friend said he was really cool and laid back. They arranged to meet a restaurant at 7, and as she walks in, her heart starts pounding, and she thinks, this is a total waste of time. He seems cool. Why did my friend set me up with him? I probably end up dropping my drink all over him. Why do I always screw up everything? He's going to know I'm nervous. As he walks in and sees her, he smiles and compliments her new shoes she bought for Burning Man. She thinks, he probably just said that to me nice. He asks her about how her friend Cassie is doing and how they know each other. She answers, and they continue to talk. And she even starts to have fun. They end the date, and he says he will call tomorrow about plans for the weekend. And as soon as she gets home, she thinks, Gary will never call me. All my relationships end up in disaster. Why bother? It's hopeless. Okay, so Vanna here is going to show the next slide, which is examples of cognitive distortions. Cognitive meaning thought, distortions meaning skewed or away from reality. So the first is catastrophizing, which is thinking that the worst thing that could happen will. The second is discounting positives, not paying attention to the positive. Labeling is you assign yourself or others global negative qualities. Emotional reasoning is confusing feelings with facts, letting your emotions guide your interpretation of reality. Fortune telling, which is predicting the future negatively. And mind reading, when you assume you know the content of other people's minds, but it's negative. Okay, so can anyone tell me what distortions of thought these are that Vanna had? This is a total waste of time. Can anyone guess? Yes, catastrophizing. He seems cool. Why did my friend set him up with me? Anybody? Yes, discounting positives. I'll probably end up dropping my drink all over him. Fortune telling, good. Why do I always screw everything up? Labeling. He is just going to know I'm nervous. You mind reading? He probably just said that to be nice. Discounting positives. He will never call me. All my relationships end up in disaster. Why bother? It's hopeless. Well, that's a few. And in the process of talking to my patients, I will often stop them and make them label their own thoughts. Next slide. Now, Vanna here is going to show us a thought log. This is what I do with my patients. This is what they take home and fill out every day about their thoughts. Because if you just listen to the guitar once, you can't pick it up and play it. You've got to listen to it and take it home and practice, practice, practice. So this is how you learn to think differently. So I would say, Vanna, blind date with Gary, thought, Gary will never call me. All my relationships end up in disaster. Why bother? This is hopeless. Emotion is sadness, frustration, and hopelessness, which is a 9. The cognitive distortions are emotional reasoning, fortune telling. And then I say, okay, what's the rational thought? And they say, well, these are my thoughts. I say, yeah, but tell me what I want to hear. And often they'll say, well, many men have called me after a date. I've had some good relationships. Even if they didn't work out, some of them end up being my best friends. I am not a disaster. I have some talents. There is always hope. Many of my friends have gotten married after many failed relationships. So now the emotions, maybe they're still sad and frustrated, but maybe it's a 7 instead of a 9, which I think is progress. Okay. So this is about fake it till you make it. So many patients tell me, I don't believe new thoughts. I don't feel that I'm smart or cool or have anything to offer. I tell them, fake it. Practice a new way of thinking, and eventually it will replace the old way. It's not about being fake happy or narcissistic or grandiose, just rational, meaning balanced. You may not be the skinniest, the smartest, or the most talented, but instead of skinny, you can be healthy. Instead of smart, you can be worldly or artistic. And instead of the most talented, you can believe you have strengths and things to offer. This is about fair and balanced, not happy all the time. Okay, next slide. What about the B of CBT, which is about changing behavior? Staying home will make you sad. Figure out what brings you down and what brings you up, and then make a plan to do more of the up. So I'll make patients fill out a diary. They'll tell them they will actually fill out what they did each hour of the day and tell me if they got any pleasure out of it or mastery. Pleasure meaning, was it fun? You know, maybe watching Kardashians is fun. Maybe you love them, so it's a 7. But it's not high on mastery, not achieving much. But maybe studying is a 9 on mastery, but a 1 on pleasure. Still worth doing, wouldn't you say? So after they fill that out, they're going to fill out for the next week their predicted. So they're going to chart out what they want to do, such as exercising or whatever, and try to stick to it, change their behavior. So I want to talk about some special applications of CBT. One is exposure and response prevention in obsessive compulsive disorder. This is where you take a patient who has obsessive compulsive disorder, maybe has a grave fear of germs, and they wash their hands 50 times a day. Well, what we'll do is say, germs are really not going to hurt you. You may get sick, but you will recover. So we do crazy things like touching toilet seats. I make them put their hands in it. I do it too. So they see that I'm not dying. And then I make them touch dirt and eat it. And it sounds strange, but they realize that germs don't kill them. And they don't have to wash their hands 100 times a day to keep themselves from getting sick. And then I want to talk to you about another special application, which is called dialectical behavioral therapy. This is something I feel very passionate about. It was developed by Marsha Linehan. She used some Buddhist and Catholic practices of mindfulness and meditation. And she created this, and it's wonderful for suicidal thinking, substance abuse, eating disorders, trauma, and traumatic brain injury. But It's good for everyone. Often these people who need DBT have borderline personality disorder or other types of up and down moods daily. And they often live in invalidating environments, such as parents who are neglectful of their needs or sexual abuse. DBT helps increase their emotional and cognitive stability. And also, it's all about coping skills. DBT assumes that people are doing the best they can, which is a concept called radical self-acceptance, but are either lacking the skills or influenced by positive or negative reinforcement, which are stressors in their life that interfere with their ability to function. One thing we go over in DBT is interpersonal effectiveness, which means how do you relate to people in your life so you don't cause drama, you don't cause fights. And there's some really concrete examples, such as you can use I think and I feel statements instead of you. So for example, instead of saying to your husband, you didn't call me last night and you said you would, you could say, I felt sad when you didn't call me last night. Instead of saying, you left the house a mess and I had to clean it up, you could say, I think it would be better if you had cleaned up before you left. I feel frustrated when I come home and have to clean up after you. Sometimes you can end with a self-care statement. That means, what are the consequences if they don't do what you want? You could say, if messes are left behind by you, I'm going to get a cleaning lady and we'll split the expenses. Another concept of DBT is mindfulness. So mindfulness is amazing, and it's about using meditation to promote calm. So there's a couple ways to do that. You could do progressive muscle relaxation, which means you contract each set of muscles. You can do like a raisin meditation, where you eat a raisin very slowly over the course of 10 minutes to feel every groove in your mouth, really focus on the raisin. You can do, deep breathing. And the point of mindfulness is when you're feeling really sad and you're feeling really emotionally charged, do the breathing, calm yourself down. Don't call a friend and start a fight. This is a time to learn to self-soothe. It is the best gift you can give yourself. So, in closing, CBT has the ability, I forgot to say one thing about radical self-acceptance. I think the most interesting thing about radical self-acceptance is that it's about accepting yourself and your past for what it is, like a line of dominoes for all your flaws, and at the same time trying to change what you can. It's about acceptance and change, not acceptance or change. What that means is that you can hate certain things about yourself, but you're going to accept that this is because of a lot of factors. Maybe you were abused, maybe you had a lot of bad problems in your life, but you can accept that. But you can say, what can I change at this moment? Acceptance and change. It's like the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, the courage to change what I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Without radical acceptance, there can be no radical self-reliance or radical self-expression, which are the core principles of Burning Man, because this gives us the emotional grounding to depend on number one, which is ourself, and also have the courage to use our creativity. So, in closing, CBT has the ability to change our perspective by allowing us to see the world rationally, which means fair and balanced. This gives us more emotional stability, acceptance of our flaws, and the ability to instrument change within ourselves. By being more tolerant of ourselves, we can be more tolerant of others, and in doing so, change the people we touch and the world around us. So, I hope you learned something about cognitive behavioral therapy today, and maybe you can apply some of it to your own life. Thank you.